Let's focus on one city, Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia, home to more than 10 million people in the city proper and over 30 million in the greater metropolitan area, as scientists say that it is sinking faster than almost any major city on Earth. Right now, the city is dropping at an average of 1 to 15 centimeters per year, depending on the neighborhood. In northern Jakarta, near the coast, some areas have already sunk more than 4 meters in the past few decades. That means whole districts that used to stand safely above sea level are now sitting below it, protected only by fragile seawalls that are cracking under pressure. Why is this happening? The biggest culprit is groundwater extraction. Jakarta has long struggled to provide clean, piped water to all of its residents. So millions of households and businesses dig their own wells, pumping water directly from underground aquifers. As those aquifers empty, the ground above them collapses, like air being let out of a balloon. Add in the weight of dense urban development on swampy, unstable soil, and the land sinks even faster. But that's only half the story. Global sea levels are rising, driven by melting ice sheets and warming oceans. This means that while the land is falling, the water is climbing higher and higher. Combine the two, and Jakarta is losing ground at double speed. Already, high tides and heavy rains frequently flood streets, shutting down traffic, damaging homes, and spreading disease through contaminated water. The future projections are staggering. By 2050, experts warn that up to one-third of Jakarta could be underwater if drastic action isn't taken. Northern districts, including key ports, businesses, and densely populated neighborhoods, are at risk of permanent flooding. Imagine millions of people displaced, historic neighborhoods lost, and a city that once stood as Indonesia's beating heart forced to retreat inland. And this isn't just a humanitarian disaster, it's an economic one. Jakarta is the financial, cultural, and political hub of Indonesia. Losing even a portion of it would send shockwaves through the country's economy, disrupt trade across Southeast Asia, and create millions of climate refugees in the process. That's why the Indonesian government has already taken an extraordinary step, planning to move the capital to a new city, Nusantara, on the island of Borneo. But even as that project begins, millions of Jakartans remain living day by day in a city that scientists warn may not survive the century. The frightening part is that this crisis may unfold much sooner than people expect. When we think of sea level rise, it's tempting to imagine a distant problem, something for the year 2100, something our great-grandchildren will deal with. But for cities like Jakarta, the tipping point is already close. Here's why. The sinking of land isn't just steady, it's accelerating. Every year, land isn't just dropping a few millimeters a year. It's falling by as much as 10 or even 15 centimeters. That means a family living in one of these districts could literally watch the ground outside their door sink lower than the tide within a single decade. And while that's happening, global sea levels are also climbing faster. Scientists estimate seas are rising at about 3 to 4 millimeters per year worldwide, and that pace is speeding up as polar ice melts. Now add those two forces together. The ground drops, the water rises, and suddenly the change you expected to see in a century hits within just a few decades. But it isn't only about the numbers. Nature has a way of amplifying the danger. Stronger storms, heavier rainfall, and higher tides all combine with sinking land to push water deeper into cities than ever before. Floods that used to be called once in a century are now happening every few years, and in some places, every single rainy season. That's why scientists warn that the danger isn't just in the future, it's in the speed of change. Jakarta, Bangkok, Ho Chi Minh City, these places could cross the point of no return within our lifetime. What feels gradual now can quickly snowball into a full-blown disaster. Faced with the possibility of sinking, cities like Jakarta are scrambling to find solutions. But the scale of the challenge is massive, and the clock is ticking. One of the most ambitious projects in Jakarta is the so-called Giant Seawall. This colossal barrier stretching along the coast of the Java Sea is designed to shield the city from incoming tides and storm surges. The vision is to build not only a protective wall, but also artificial islands that could house new developments. On paper, it looks like a fortress against the ocean. But in practice, construction delays, skyrocketing costs, and environmental concerns have made progress slow and uncertain. Critics warn that if the land beneath the wall keeps sinking, even this giant barrier may one day be useless. Meanwhile, engineers and city planners are looking at other defenses, elevating buildings and infrastructure, redesigning drainage systems to handle heavier rainfall, and restoring natural wetlands that can absorb floodwaters. These solutions might not be as dramatic as a megawall, but they are crucial for buying time. In fact, wetlands and mangroves, which once lined much of Jakarta's coast, are some of the most effective natural defenses against rising seas. Restoring them could create a buffer zone between the city and the water. Another option is relocation. Indonesia has already begun building Nusantara, a brand new capital city on the island of Borneo, far from the rising seas of Jakarta Bay. This move is historic, a government choosing to leave behind a sinking city. But moving the capital doesn't save the millions of people who still call Jakarta home. For them, there is no easy escape. The reality is that no single solution will save Jakarta or any other sinking city. Seawalls may hold the ocean back for a time, but without fixing the root cause of land subsidence, the ground itself will keep collapsing. Drainage systems can reduce flooding, but they won't stop the rising tide. Relocation can protect a government, but not an entire population. The fight to save these cities will require all of it: engineering, environmental restoration, new infrastructure, and bold political choices. The question is whether those choices will be made in time, or whether the sea will rise faster than the will to act. So what happens if nothing changes? What if the walls crumble, the pumps fail, and the city keeps sinking while the seas keep rising? The picture is grim. Entire neighborhoods would vanish beneath the water, not during rare disasters, but permanently. Families who have lived in the same houses for generations would be forced to abandon them, turning millions of people into internal refugees with nowhere to go. And when millions of people move at once, the ripple effects don't stop at city borders. They spread through an entire nation. Historic districts and cultural landmarks could be lost forever. Imagine the places that define a city: markets, mosques, temples, old colonial streets, all swallowed by the sea. The identity of the city, the sense of belonging its people share, would disappear along with the land itself. The economic fallout would be staggering. Jakarta is Indonesia's beating heart, home to its stock exchange, its ports, and countless businesses. Losing even a portion of it could cost hundreds of billions of dollars. Trade routes could be disrupted, jobs destroyed, and the burden of rebuilding placed on a government already stretched thin. What happens when the engine of a nation's economy sinks? The effects ripple far beyond Indonesia. They reach into global supply chains, shipping networks, and markets. And then there's public health. When flooding overwhelms sewage systems, diseases spread faster. Contaminated water leads to outbreaks of cholera, dengue, and other illnesses. Hospitals, if they're flooded too, can't keep up. Disasters pile on disasters, leaving communities trapped in cycles of loss. But perhaps the greatest cost isn't material, it's psychological. Imagine knowing your home, your street, your childhood memories, your sense of place is doomed to vanish. Imagine children growing up with the knowledge that their city might not exist by the time they are adults. That kind of loss doesn't just wash away buildings, it washes away identity, stability, and hope. If nothing changes, Jakarta could become the first megacity of the modern era to sink beneath the waves. And if that happens, it won't be an isolated tragedy. So where do we go from here? Can a city like Jakarta be saved, or is its fate sealed? The answer isn't simple, but there is hope. Action starts with awareness. People need to understand the scale of the problem, the ticking clock beneath their feet. Governments, engineers, and communities must work together, combining science, technology, and planning to slow or even reverse the effects of sinking and flooding. The reality is that while we may not be able to stop the ocean entirely, we can influence how it impacts our cities. We can build higher, plan smarter, and protect lives. And in doing so, we can ensure that cities like Jakarta don't just become cautionary tales. They become examples of resilience and innovation in the face of climate change. The choice is ours. We can ignore the warnings and watch as history slowly sinks, or we can act boldly, urgently, and intelligently to safeguard the places that define our world. The question isn't whether the city will sink, it's whether we will rise to meet the challenge before it's too late. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe, and if you want curious questions answered, have a look at some of our other videos.